What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, talking today about the Atari VCS, also known as the Atari Box, because after 2 long years of delays, hype, and confusion, it sounds like Atari's new console is finally almost ready to be released, and to be honest, I am completely shocked that it's even really going to hit store shelves. Even now, I'm a little bit skeptical that this will really ever launch, but maybe we're going to see. So this morning is Black Friday. Most people are out there trying to get deals, buying cool games, and out there just on the streets, and I decided to take it easy, avoid the traffic, and just kind of hang out and play some games. When suddenly, I got an email from Atari saying, hey, congratulations, thanks to everybody who backed our Kickstarter and gave us $1 million, now it's time to release this thing, and it's coming out actually pretty soon, in early 2020. They even attached a bunch of photographs of them doing the finalized pre-production, which really kind of means that they're doing the final tests on the final cases and putting this thing all together. Now, today what I want to do is basically tell you a list of reasons why you absolutely should not buy the Atari Box or the Atari VCS. Now, my subscribers are really smart. You guys are definitely not going to buy this anyways, but I want to try and educate people as to why this thing is just very clearly something is not right. So I decided to compile a list of all the really sketchy things they've been up to, but most importantly, let's just talk about the fact that this is a very suspicious Kickstarter. While it may be called the Atari VCS and the project itself was originally called the Atari Box, we have to keep in mind that this isn't really Atari. It's actually like an investment group that came in and purchased the company name. This isn't Atari in any way, shape, or form. In fact, a lot of these developers are people who are kind of renowned for doing some very odd projects and doing a lot of crowdfunded goals that never really get completed. There was fake Apple Watches, they've done all sorts of stuff, and even now, what's really weird, the people who are making the Atari VCS are not just working on this. In fact, people did some digging and they discovered that the people who are mainly behind this are actually working on a completely separate Kickstarter console called the Game Board 1, which means that these people are taking double the crowdfunding money and supposedly working on 2 separate projects. Imagine if you tried to take a bunch of crowdfunded efforts to create a game. You're trying to work on your own version of Final Fantasy called like Awakening Destiny. Okay, that's pretty cool. You have a pitch, you have some ideas, you start getting some funding, and then separately, you start trying to take more money from a separate Kickstarter that's basically a ripoff of Mega Man. Maybe call it something like Blue Bomber Burst or whatever. Well, what does this mean? Doesn't it seem like a little bit of a shady tactic to be taking double the funding and then we're somehow supposed to believe that these people are making 2 separate consoles at once with their literal millions of dollars? I think that money is not always a big deal. Sometimes in these Kickstarters, we don't really need to focus on the numbers too much, but when it comes to the Atari VCS, I do think that it's important to actually mention that over 11,000 people backed this project. They were so invested in the idea of this Indiegogo or this crowdfunding effort that they wanted to try and personally fund its existence. And they earned over $1 million to try and finish this. And here we are 2 years later, where is it at? The biggest issue is that there is a huge amount of mass confusion. Pretty much every part of this is just murky details. And really, what's really incredibly bad in my opinion is Atari is trying to censor their fans who are asking questions. Yes, that's right. So while I was digging around, I discovered something that just never got mainstream attention, but apparently a bunch of the people who backed the Kickstarter, those people that are part of those 11,000, they've been very curious as to what they're getting. I mean, a lot of these people gave hundreds and hundreds of dollars of their hard-earned money towards this mythological project, and here we are, tons of delays later. They don't know which controllers they're getting, they don't know what games this will play, and so of course, they decided to make their own community to ask questions, an ability to actually communicate with other disgruntled fans. So they made their own personal subreddit, a place for them, the actual fans, to talk amongst themselves and really just kind of voice their efforts to say what is really going on. And what's funny is Atari discovered that fans were asking questions came into the subreddit, got permission to be the head moderator, and started deleting the stuff they didn't like. They started removing threads with legitimate questioning about ship dates, legitimate questions about what this thing was going to have in the terms of like exclusives. They were literally removing anybody who thought that they were asking a question that might be a little bit hard to answer. They were getting shut down. And so what's funny is the other moderators, the people who created the subreddit community, had to kick Atari out. This is their clubhouse, and they were forcefully removed from it because they just couldn't be trusted. But this kind of shady tactics are not exactly just unknown. The Atari VCS is a project that's been mired in huge amounts of weird, very elusive details. The biggest thing I bet a lot of you are wondering is there's been a lot of talk online of people saying, what is the Atari VCS? We know that this is a new console by Atari, but what will it do? What will it look like? What will it play? Well, here's the funny thing. We don't know. This thing is literally coming out in possibly a matter of months, and we really haven't seen any gameplay. We haven't seen any giant grand reveals. We're not sure. There have been so many conflicting reports. There hasn't been a ton of in-depth reviews with the people that are behind the Atari box, but the ones that have been giving actually information that is not lining up. Sometimes they say that this is a retro-style system, something for the fans of the Atari of old. Sometimes they're saying that this is more like a Steam box, a system that you can hack, code, and mod, or just play existing games in an easy fashion. But sometimes they're saying that this is going to be a next-gen system, playing more cutting-edge indie stuff that exists now. Which is it? We really have no idea because they haven't given us exact specifications. Even now, they haven't just sat down and said, this is an AMD Ryzen. Like, they've given us some details at times, but not enough to really have a concrete idea. It is all just these giant, elusive dreams that is so frustrating to me because some people are still totally buying it. Right now, there are people who are excited for these little pictures and going, man, that wood paneling is going to be fantastic, when obviously this is a giant scam. I hate to throw out such an aggressive word, but my thing here is that it's pretty obvious that something here is definitely not right. I mean, even this. It is Black Friday. People are still in a turkey coma from just eating a pile of dead bird yesterday, and here they are trying to sneak out a press release. At this point, I think that this is one of those take the money and run situations. We've seen this in the past where somebody does like a giant, extremely successful crowdfunding effort, they get millions and millions of dollars, and at this point, they're only really concerned about releasing some sort of product. It doesn't matter if it's great, it doesn't matter if it's actually fantastic, it doesn't matter if it even fulfills the original goals, as long as it gets something out there that can't be sued. That's it. That's all they care about. They're just trying to get something out there so people will shut up. Even if this thing is bad, let's face it, it's kind of an OUYA principle. The OUYA, as much as the OUYA sucks, you could tell that they actually tried. The thing wasn't great, and it definitely bombed catastrophically, but the people who are making the OUYA, they actually thought they had a perfect idea. They thought that this was going to completely shake up the games industry, when obviously it didn't. But they weren't trying to be malicious about it. They knew that they had gotten such a huge amount of money and needed to be the best console possible. This thing is easily going to be 10 steps below the OUYA. This thing right now looks like it's going to be below the Google Stadia. I'll just say it, this thing looks like it's going to be worse than the Soulja Boy game console, and that never even came out, I believe. There's so few real concrete details as to what exactly the Atari VCS is going to be, but the one thing that they've definitely already said is that it's going to be about $250. And this, more than anything, should be the biggest reasoning that you should not buy it. $250 for a tiny little Steam box is a terrible ripoff when you realize that there are a lot of things that you could play way more games on for way cheaper. Even this is actually my fiance's Nintendo Switch Mini. She put this cool custom shell on it. It looks so gorgeous. This was $200. This is an incredibly better device. If you got this with just a couple like $50 of game eShop cards and just bought some indie games, this is a trillion times better than the Atari VCS could ever even dream of being. It is just something that is pure smoke, pure mirrors, and absolutely no follow through. I apologize if you're somebody who bought the Kickstarter, because you were taken for a ride. I don't think that the people who did this were... I don't think that you're like bad consumers. You were misled. You thought that this could be fantastic. A lot of people are really big fans of the Atari brand, because while they haven't made a game in years and years and years, people grew up with that. My first memory ever, the first thing that's ever in my head, is actually sitting down at, I think, like 4 or 5 years old and playing a bunch of Atari as a little kid and just seeing moving pictures on the screen for the first time ever in my life. So there is that emotional impact. People wanted this to be fantastic, and instead it's turning out to be just yet another dumpster fire. 2020 is going to be great. It's going to be having some big, flashy, cool consoles, but this definitely is not one of them. Save your money, buy something cool, get something great, or just put it in savings, because anything you drop on the Atari VCS is going straight down the drain. My camera died right as I was doing my outro, but thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. I cannot believe that happened. Oh, it's full. I forgot to freaking delete the stuff on the memory card. I'm really not good at being a YouTuber. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, you know, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.